the ballot, 12% of those ballots uh, are are not found to be a match against their signature, and so they're asked to cure their ballot. And there's lots of easy ways to cure, but they don't do that either. And so 12% of these votes are not counted. And the Secretary of State has seen this number going up. They've been trying to bring it down via things like text to cure, which is an easy way for someone to register and be able to cure their ballot, which means make it valid. Say that was my signature via text message. But it turns out that us old folks do a lot of text to cure and the young folks don't do much. So it's still an issue that people are trying to work on. So that the percent that fail drops after age 18, but it's still lots of numbers for 19 and 20 and 21-year-olds.
Well, Neil, is the Secretary of State's office, have they mounted any kind of campaign to write
They're in
out to this group? Is there
they're
something
they were asking, and there was also a lawsuit about this. The league was
right?
actually asked to join the lawsuit. We declined to. There was one in Washington, and they've changed some procedures in Washington. This was really a call from the Secretary of State's office to clerks saying, what can we do to fix this? How do we reach out to the voters? How do we get them in or get them to give us a good signature or change the way we're dealing with things? So I don't have lots of detail in my head right now on how they're doing it, but just know that A, it's a big problem. B, it's very important that we have some way of verifying eligibility because this is absolutely an issue where there are concerns about fraudulent voting, which of course doesn't happen very often. But if we didn't do any checking, maybe it would happen more often. So it's just trying to reconcile all of those competing interests and make sure that people's votes count. So wanted to highlight that. The clerks meeting also had a lot of attention on disinformation, as we've all been hearing at a national level, not just with AI, and I know there's a bill on that. I hope, I don't know where that stands right now, but my hope is that we concentrate on the disinformation itself and don't imagine that it's hard to do without AI or hard to define AI. I don't want AI to be kind of the thing that um, that has to be proven because that all by itself is a complete rat hole. But to the extent that there's um, fake images in particular, videos in particular, which can be very convincing to a lot of people who don't think skeptically about the information they're shown. I mean, it's natural for us to kind of believe stuff that we see that looks realistic. So lots of ways to do that, and I'm hoping that everyone's paying attention to that issue, which is good. One of the ways to fight that, though, besides that kind of identifying things that are fake, is to make very credible evidence digital signatures for things that are genuine. And so there's a focus on helping both candidates and election offices put digital signatures on images and videos and reports and so on, which this will take time. Over time, people can be attuned to look for and think, wow, if that sounds like a strange, hard to believe disinformation maybe thing, I should look to see if there's a digital signature, which the term that a lot of people are, the standard that a lot of people are rallying behind is called content credentials. So there's a little CR mark on an image that your browser someday soon might be able to say. So I'm just attuning people to look for that and think about providing reason to trust that you did actually generate content so that people can check that.
We've got two questions here,
Yeah,
Christine.
yeah.
We have two questions. I don't. I think Christina might have been first.
Go
Christina.
ahead. Dive right in.
Okay, Neil, the 18-year-olds and under, or 18-year-olds have a 12% cure rate, needing to cure rate, what's the overall population?
Oh, it goes way down. That's a good question. It it uh let I will try to pull that up. It drops off very steeply, and then it's very low for ages in the 30s, 40s, all the way up to the 60s, maybe 70s. It goes up a little bit at the end, but really not much. It's specifically a problem for very young voters.
Do you think part of that may be that young voters are not as engaged and
Yeah.
feel like if they cast a vote, then that's all they have to do?
Who cares? I didn't really trust anybody anyway. Yeah, I mean, all kinds of reasons that people might.
I do believe there's something to their signature not being set, though, because even
Yeah.
at 25, my daughter had a professional signature and her personal signature, and she mixed them up the first time she voted after she set that pattern.
Yeah.
And promptly got a note.
Well, good. I hope that helped her fix
Jerry,
things or whatever.
Jerry,
I had basically the same question, and you probably covered it before I was able to get in. What percentage of that 12% are the youth vote, the young vote?
That's specifically for people who are 18. So 19-year-olds
Okay.
have, I don't know if it's an 8 or a 7% rate, and 20-year-olds, and there's two different things. One, they might be getting better signatures on file. Two, they're older and they were more likely to grow up in an age when you had to actually use a pen on a piece of paper
Yeah.
and make it
Yeah.
look reproducible or something like
Yeah.
that. We don't
Nice,
teach
Neil.
cursive anymore. So
Jennifer.
good. Other questions?
Yeah, Jennifer.
Please jump in.
Jennifer, you're on mute.
Sorry, I got my original hand. I can't find my computer hand. But just for your information, Neil, the way they did it in Wisconsin was they didn't verify with a computer. You had a witness. And so the witness was supposed to verify that you signed it, and then the witness put their name and address. So if you verified by computer and you had a witness as well as a secondary backup, if the computer dumped it, would that something like that work?
So let me make sure I understand. So first of all, in Colorado, of course, we over 95% of ballots come in from the mail ballots, and they're usually coming through drop boxes and so on.
Right.
And there is a signature on the envelope. And if you can't sign, or under a couple of rare circumstances, you can have a signature of a witness on the envelope. Are you saying, and so in many states, it's much less common to vote by mail. Most of the voting is in person, and there are some states I think require witnesses like for everyone. Are you saying in Wisconsin, all vote by mail required also a witness, Mark, or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
and how did they verify the witness?
There's a witness name and address, and they don't verify, much like, you self-affirm that you voted yourself. The witness is self-affirming, so to speak, that they are the witness. Right. And so their signature has to be on there. Now, Wisconsin got into a rabbit hole with that because sometimes people would forget their address, or sometimes they'd forget their zip code. And there was all kinds of fights about that. But if you had a backup witness signature, I don't know, maybe that would help decrease the number of rejections. If your computer generated that look bumped it out of the system because it didn't match, then you could look for the witness signature, and if the witness verified that that was indeed the person.
Well, it gets pretty complicated. In Colorado, they have a space for witness. It's occasionally required, but I don't think they look at that at all. And it's hard to look at it because they don't, it's not like they're asking people to put down a voter ID number, which is what you would need to pull up reference signatures to compare against. So it gets pretty tricky.
Yeah.
When you're not in a situation like what we do in Colorado, where the envelope already has a barcode. The envelope says who you are. It writes in ink who you are. There's barcodes, and they can, in a very automated way,
Yeah, I'm looking at my
put up
ballot.
those comparisons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure that would help.
I don't
Other
know.
questions?
Interesting topic.
Yeah.
Well, I think something else you may want to point out too, Neil, is that in Colorado, we really try to discourage people from voting online just because that's not very secure.
Yeah.
You might want to address that.
Yeah, and actually that tees up kind of the next topic I was going to talk about, which is less an issue from like a state perspective. I think it was about caucuses. Some of the caucuses have been happening nearly or actually completely online. And to the extent that votes are being taken in those assemblies or caucuses or higher level things at the county or state level, it is, as always, and as the league here has talked about and written a position statement on, very difficult to authenticate who people are and to make sure that their vote is recorded accurately and so on. So to the extent that that stuff is moving online, it's worrisome. I don't know that it's something that the league would delve into, but internet voting, very, very hard to secure. I will note that just today I saw some news that there's a federal military effort to set up kiosks overseas for some military voters, which will use their military ID to authenticate themselves and kind of vote online, but also print a ballot and have the ballot returned automatically. It's kind of an interesting intermediate approach that, because it has a kiosk, it's easier to, and the security cards, it's easier to secure. So we'll see where that goes. A friend of mine is actually doing that software and working with the DoD on that.
Would those kiosks be highly secure?
This is a demonstration project. It won't be out for a year. They did a demo at the national meeting of the Secretary of State's, NAS. So I don't have many answers right now, but yet another thing to watch. Another topic that is that's up, the legislature's in session, and there is, I think, actually 2 different election bills that have not appeared yet, that even my go-to people haven't necessarily seen, that might be of interest. One of them, I'm told, in very good news, will have language making it easier to be transparent about ballot images. So that right now the county clerks are required to redact stray marks on ballots under the notion that this might identify a voter or something like that. I think the language that people are agreeing on is that, I mean, first of all, that's a huge burden for the clerks. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because stray marks are, it can't be authenticated. So, some people will say, they wrote in a name or a phone number or something. Well, you can write in anybody's name or phone number or whatever. So the message to voters is don't put stray marks. Don't do that. But the message to clerks is, if they do, you don't have to redact it because it's kind of not, because it makes it very hard to then release those in a timely and cost-effective way, which a lot of voters seem to be interested in being able to see all the ballots. And I think that's a good direction to go. So that might actually happen in a bill coming soon.
And would it be applicable to the November election?
it might be applicable to the real soon. It might be sooner than November. It's a policy change, so it doesn't require like implementation. Might even be effective for this election. I'm not sure.
Did you say there was a second bill then that focused on second piece of
I've only heard of one of these two cleanup bills before this morning, so I don't know if the other one might be, but apparently both the Secretary of State's office and a separate bill that the clerks are working in concert with the proponents. So things coming. It's often the case, unfortunately, really in most any legislature, but very much in Colorado, that some of these election bills either come up at the last minute or they come up very early in a way that they try to get approval on very quickly. So it's been hard to have reasoned comment on some of these. I'm hoping that this one will not be in that category, but we will see how it actually works out. But we need to be alert and ready to react to whatever might come out. There is a bill that I know a bunch of you have been, not a bill, but a proposal for an initiative from Kent Thiry, who has passed several initiatives that the League has worked with in the past on redistricting and so on. And his approach, the stuff that I think is very positive, is to try to have an even more open primary in which, really, as you were saying in Wisconsin, everybody votes on the same ballot for the same set of candidates, and then to have a better voting method in the general, in which he's proposing an instant runoff tabulation method, but other methods would also help to avoid the spoiler effect. And I think it'd be great to do that. There's some other language that has been in those bills around requiring that the counting be done by election night and requiring that ballots be counted as soon as they arrive in the clerk's offices weeks before the election and stuff, that I think would be very damaging. And hopefully we're going to not see those. There's been a total of, I believe, 22 or 23 bills previously, or proposals for an initiative previously submitted, that most of those were rejected, and there's another batch of 12 or something that have come in. I haven't looked at those yet. Anyway, more things for the League to pay attention to. I know Celeste Landry has been very active in trying to actually work with them and vet that. And finally, I want to note one of the
hang on just a minute, dear. We have a question that might.
Oh, please.
Jennifer.
I'm just curious, Neil, you said that, you know, the early votes that come in, and you're not counting them. I understand that. But you said that that would be problematic if they did start to count them early. What makes it problematic? And is there a way that that could be fixed so that it wouldn't be problematic?
Right. I mean, the goal and the rule, the law in Colorado is that you can't release any tabulation results before 7 p.m. on election night, because, you know, you don't want insiders to have, or you know, you can't use that information. You don't want insiders to have information that says, oh my goodness, we only need another 1,000 ballots and we'll do a special extra push, and or this is how many ballots we would need to fraudulently change or whatever. It's just a bad idea to.
But you would keep that confidential, wouldn't you? I mean, if you did it like the day before, couldn't you keep it confidential?
Yeah. So the way it happens in Colorado now, and I'm just learning more about this, they actually do. It's a good idea to help make it easier to get results quickly. And in order to do that, what you need is to scan the ballots. If there's questionable marks on the ballots, to have the adjudication workers be able to look at the ballot and manually make sure that votes are being interpreted right. all of that is time consuming and can happen and does happen ahead of time in Colorado. What the bill does is it uses, first of all, the word count, which I think is a really bad thing. I think we should interpret the ballots, but not tally them up, because even doing the tally is a bad thing. So I think it's taking language from the rules and putting it in statute, or actually in the Constitution, which would be harder to fix. Because I want to make this distinction. I want to say it's okay to kind of do some of the processing, but I don't want anyone to even be able to get a tally, even if they're sworn to secrecy. I don't think people should have access to it. So making that the word in the Constitution is one of the things that's most.
Isn't it
Well,
all
nothing ever
confusing?
stays.
Say again?
Nothing ever stays a secret when you intend for it to be a secret like that.
Exactly.
Huh.
It's such a small piece of information that makes it so valuable. So yeah, we just don't want anyone to know. Good
Well,
question.
the voting machines only count the total number until you request the individual names of who they voted for. So couldn't you just program the system to tally the total number of ballots and not give that info? I mean, it's all done through the computer, whatever.
Okay,
I
so
get
to be
that.
clear, the number of ballots is something that they do report on a daily basis during the election.
And they've scanned the ballots,
Yeah,
but they don't say there are 50 ballots in and 49 of those ballots were for Dodo Head.
Right.
right. Yeah, so the way the text is used, they were talking about counting in a way that I thought implicated the votes, because the whole point is to report the votes as quickly as possible. So I think that's the part that's misguided, that I just don't want in the Constitution. And the title board has separated that out. So I'm hoping that if it is proposed, it would have to be a separate amendment, and that's at least better than combining it with things that I think the league would want to support.
Let me just clarify though, are you suggesting that this is, my sense is that you're saying possibly that maybe we don't want to put this in the Constitution, because if it's inserted in the Constitution and then we realize that it's not quite working the way we thought it would, it's really hard to change it. Is this something that would be better achieved some other way, that would have, that would have some teeth and some weight, but not quite the difficulty that you would run into if it's a constitutional amendment and now the bar is set way up here instead of a little lower?
That's absolutely generally my goal, is to leave a little flexibility with things that we're not too worried about, but with things that the legislature in particular is kind of well known to have their own unusual positions on, and voting methods is actually one of those things. Maybe that does belong in the Constitution. So it's the fact that it combines all those things together and puts things that shouldn't be there in the Constitution. Absolutely, we should be very careful about what language goes in. I'm told that the proponents, one of the reasons that they want to do the Constitution is because they don't have to be as precise as they would if they made it legislation or statute. In statute, you have to make sure that it's really not ambiguous at all and clarify everything that needs to happen. And that's a hard thing for all the changes they're trying to do. So, I think that's part of, they also don't want people to be able to change some of the critical elements of it. But yep.
Beth, do you have a question? Beth?
Beth?
Oh, I just wanted to say that we're monitoring the theory initiatives very closely. Most of them we find to be kind of scary. Certainly the early count, mandatory early count deadline. I cannot see the Colorado League supporting that.
Good.
We're concerned about the vacancy committee thing as well. Nobody likes that 28% of our legislators are appointed by a very small group of people right now, but the idea of putting that on our county clerks every time someone steps down, having a special election, that's burdensome and expensive. So we don't yet have a good position there. Just continuing to monitor. Of course, the Alternative Voting Methods Task Force is pretty excited about the idea of ranked choice voting, being put in here. But a lot of the rest of it, we're a little bit scared about.
Yeah, they have been separating the pieces out, but I haven't looked at the latest
Yeah.
set. So that
Yeah.
that all sounds quite appropriate from my standpoint.
And we've been talking, yeah.
I'm
We've
excited
been
about
talking to
it.
both theories people, yeah, and opponents.
Yeah,
So, and being very transparent about that.
yeah.
So
Thank you.
anyway, sure.
Beth, do you think that they are, I was kind of in on some of those conversations at the very beginning, and my sense was that they weren't really too eager to make any compromises. Do you find that they're maybe stepping away from that stance, or what's your sense?
I would say that's true. I mean, while they have been open to some change in text, there are other things, I mean, we immediately told them, like, I just really can't see the league supporting this early count deadline. Uh, you know, are you really considering that? And they, yes, firm. And Celeste has been talking to them around some wording around RCV, especially using the word majority. And they've been Celeste Landry has been, they've been kind of stubborn.
Yeah.
But they want what they want.
The other one that is controversial is the requirements on petitioning onto the ballot initially. And David Ortiz, one of the state representatives who is confined to a wheelchair, has proposed legislation concerned that basically banning that as the exclusive way to get on, based on his feeling that it's discriminatory against people with disabilities who aren't going to go running around collecting petitions.
I think that died already.
I think it's still alive.
Oh, is it?
I think it is.
Okay.
Great. So just trying to wrap some of this up. So thank you for that feedback. And yes, there's one part that I really love and a bunch of parts that I don't like. And so I'm glad that the league is continuing to push back on those problematic approaches. And then so there was a presentation by Boulder County on the instant runoff Boulder mayor contest that was very well done and very well, of great interest to the clerks at the meeting. There are a couple things that I really hope the league will support changing the rules around how we interpret instant runoff ballots. There is, and how we report on them. Right now, they do a batch elimination, which in Boulder caused consternation because people didn't know that you eliminate candidates in theory one by one, but the way they reported it, they didn't say where the votes that were originally first place for the first candidate to be eliminated, where those votes went, who those people voted for second on their ballots. And we couldn't distinguish that from the second elimination. And that's really kind of some of the most important information that we appreciate getting by changing to better voting method. So there seemed to be some support for changing that, but I think they are going to be writing rules this year for how modifying how instant runoff works. So we should get our comments in. And I'll briefly note that the recount threshold for instant runoff is a very complicated thing to figure out. Like what is the margin of victory? That's actually one of the hardest questions, and
Yeah.
it can be computationally infeasible to figure out the margin of victory for some of these voting methods. But that really needs to be in the recount statute somehow, because if it's really close, then you need to do a recount. So we need to think some more about that, and I've been trying to figure it out. So that's what I have.
Can I
Jennifer?
ask? I have two questions. I remember something about, in terms of getting on the ballot, how the list was going to be organized. How do you organize the names on the ballot, like who's first, who's in the middle? And then I'm looking at my ballot and I kind of don't recognize a lot of these people. Where do the independents and the Greens end up? Are they both on the Republican and the Democrat ballot, or is that a separate ballot?
They will put independents and, well, I don't know about the general election will have other parties that have other mechanisms for choosing party representatives on the ballot. So,
But they're not in the primaries.
They're not in the primaries. They choose in an assembly or a caucus or some other method.
Okay.
And in terms of the order, as I understand it, there's a random drawing, and you make me want to go and watch how that's happening, so that I know that it's like with all random drawings. I'm famous for wanting to see the evidence that it was done in an up and up
Randomly. Okay. All right. Just curious.
Yeah.
To kind of expand on Jennifer's question, I don't know how they do it with other primaries, but like with our city council, that election is going to be held here in April. We have 6 people running for 4 seats, and the order in which those candidates appear on the ballot was done through a drawing. Anybody that wanted to go down to City Hall, I think it was the chief of the fire protection district came in, and the names were put in a hat, and he drew them out, and that's the order in which they will appear on the ballot. I don't know how they do it with other primaries. Neil, do you know specifically?
Well, it's not just primaries, any election, like what is the order? So yeah, that sounds perfectly reasonable.
But
anybody knows
like in a presidential primary or a general election, does the county clerk just do it at their office? And
I don't know if, for example, if it's a statewide election, if they have the same order on all statewide ballots, or if they do them separately for each one. Good questions.
Jerry, would you know by chance?
I don't. I'm sorry.
We can compare our ballots for president and see if they're the same.
Okay. Do you have yours? So
Yeah.
I thought somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought there was some kind of legislation this past year about how to order the names on the ballots. Does anybody recall anything like that, or am I dreaming?
Say that again, one more time.
It seemed like not this current legislative cycle, and again, I was in and out a year ago. It seemed like there was some legislation that was presented on how to define this order, because it wasn't done being randomly previously.
Yeah, I assume that this is well specified. I'm just curious about the actual mechanism. But on my, so I'm affiliated. I have both ballots. I see Jason Palmer at the top of the
yeah, I got that
ballot, and Vivek Ramaswamy on the top of the other one, and Trump at the bottom. And non-committed delegates, another interesting one on the Dems ballot. Maybe it's the same statewide.
Mine's very different.
Oh?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you? I don't, because I don't know who any of these people are. Palmer, you had Palmer at the top of your list.
Yep.
And then there's somebody Cornejo,
I got second.
Cornejo. You got that second?
Yeah.
And then you've got Lozada,
Yeah.
Phillips. Oh, so we have the same then. Lyons,
Yeah, I
Williams.
went back and forth to the Republican ballot, but yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we're
I think it's all the same. And I thought it
So
was,
contest.
we'll have to send Neil to make sure it's truly random, but that's what I believe it was.
Good. Thank you.
okay.
Ballot order is established by drawing of lots.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, say that again.
ballot order is typically established for candidates by drawing lots by a
lots mean?
nonpartisan group or a bipartisan group,
Okay.
depending on how the clerk happens to handle it. So that's the order that we usually get.
Okay. There you go.
If you wanted to look more deeply on that, I'm sure it's still there. If you go on the Secretary of State's website and just put ballot order in the search bar,
Okay.
you're going to find other things. I just established as like congressional or federal level first, state level for next, and then on down to the dog catcher.
Okay.
Special districts come in last, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, Neil, do you have any?
Primaries? It might be a little different. They might have the highest vote getter at the assembly put first on the ballot.
And where is this?
Let me paste this into the chat. This is, I did go to the Secretary of State office at your suggestion, and it says that the order of names on a primary, if you're designated by an assembly, in the order of the vote received at the assembly. So the highest first.
So does that mean the assembly people are deciding who's first?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't seem fair. Is it?
Well,
because here like in Colorado, aren't most of them Democrats? Maybe in the Denver, I don't know.
No, this is only for the primary ballot. So in other words, there are two ways to get on a primary ballot in Colorado, I think. You can petition on, or you can be elected by people of your party at an assembly. And so we're just saying that the assembly actually makes a difference by saying if the largest number of people prefer candidate A, then candidate A gets top billing. So it's kind of fair.
Okay.
But that's not true for, I'm guessing that's not true for the general ballot.
Replacement.
As Jerry was saying.
Yeah, yeah.
30%. Well, there it's saying it must receive for 30% for a primary. So it's not random.
Right, that's what I just said. For the primary, assembly determines that.
Huh.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, is there anything else, Neil, that you would like to share?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Neil is always a wonderful source of lots of information regarding elections. So, Jerry, I'm going to turn it over to you now and take it away.
Well, thank you, Karen, and my apologies to everyone for my delayed access to the links. Here we are. LWVCO Principles of Voting. I've been working on this since late last fall, and I see some new faces, so I'll just sort of bring you up to speed on why we started on this. 3 years ago, whatever it was, that the league worked with a coalition to sponsor amendments Y and Z on the ballot, which dealt with redistricting in Colorado. There was a set of principles that the league representatives were able to follow. And of course, now we're sort of talking with folks about a Colorado voting rights amendment to go into the Constitution. And I asked if there were any principles to follow, similar to what we had for the redistricting. And we weren't aware of any, and nor could we find any. So this is the result of that discussion at that time. It's divided into two parts, direct voter access to the ballot, as well as election security issues. And I'm happy to answer any questions. The research that we did were brainstorming amongst ourselves, as well as the Brennan Center for Justice and the Colorado County Clerks Association. And those were our primary sources. So questions, suggestions. Our direction at the last meeting was that to clean it up and put it in a readable format and cut down on the number of words. So this is the attempt at doing that. Comments?
Can you register same-day voting?
Yes.
Okay.
And register 16-year-olds if they have a Colorado driver's license or ID card, with the understanding that they will not be able to vote until 18.
I'm curious, Jerry, do you know why they're allowing 16-year-olds to register so early? Is it just because they want to take advantage of the convenience of doing that when they come to get their license, so that
Yes.
they don't?
The short answer is yes, and it gets them into the system, and the computer will recognize when they turn 18 and they'll be sent a ballot.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the signature they used when they were 16 years old with their finger. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have anything on electioneering in this protocol?
No,
Are you going to put anything?
hadn't planned to. This was just to be used as a guide. Colorado has some minimal legislation on electioneering. No electioneering within 100 feet of a polling location. You can't wear campaign items into a polling location. And having said all that, roughly 90%, give or take, on which election, all vote by mail or drop box. So you whittled that outside electioneering. I assume you meant electioneering on election day or at the polls.
Or yes, early voting for people who go in and vote. One other additional is not guiding people on how to vote. That was a problem I had.
You're not supposed to discuss anything on the ballot.
I'd be inclined to add it into this document.
All right, what about the rest of you think? Do you have some phraseology we can use?
Somewhat.
Phrases, some vocabulary we can use?
I could work on it for you.
If you wouldn't mind.
A lot of it's right in the statute too, isn't it? I have to pull up the statute.
I think it's in the statute. Yeah. The recent problems have been more intimidation and harassment rather than electioneering.
Well, you just don't know. That's right. No intimidation and harassment should be in there as well. Then.
Well, it is in here. Let me find that. It's just above election security members. I'll try to find that. Well, we've got.
Who's this document going to go to?
That was my question. Now that we have a document, where should we put it?
It's primarily when I talked to Beth about this a while back, and we discussed whether or not we really felt it was worth the time and effort to continue moving forward on it. Her comment to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, was that this is being developed primarily for internal use. It's not that it couldn't be
Right.
you know, with the general public too, because it pretty much follows what we do in the state of Colorado. But it was designed to kind of serve as a checklist to be used within local leagues and at the state level. Is that an accurate depiction, Beth?
Yes.
Jennifer, are you in response to your questions about protections from what we're seeing these days? On the second, well, it's my second page, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth and sixth bullets down. Added protections for in-person voting to guard against the intimidation of voters and election workers. And the next one, freedom from fear from verbal, emotional, and physical mistreatment of voters and election officials.
Yeah, I would separate those out in a category of election, real specific. This is what you should not be doing, and make it more prominent personally.
Now say that again, put it where?
I would put it under a specific category of electioneering, so it's not messed up somewhere in the middle there and hard to find. Because I worked as what do you call them? I was a chief for like 5 years. And I'll tell you, the issues that we had in Wisconsin, now, granted, people in Colorado are nicer, were stunning. I had a mom come in with 4 kids under the age of 7, and they all had Trump t-shirts on. Tell me what you would do with that.
From inside out.
How cute. How cute is that? But I'm not going to tell mom to start changing her kids' clothes.
Yeah.
I know. I did tell her. I did go up to her and tell her how clever she was. And I was impressed with her, ingenious electioneering, and not to do that ever again. But
I think in Colorado, they would actually have them leave or change their
if it was an adult, I agree.
Even kids.
I agree. I get it. But I would just, I think citizens are getting so rude at these polling sites. Now, granted, you don't have them as much, but I think that, highlighting it somewhere at the beginning would be really useful.
Jerry,
look at that.
I'm going to bring it up because actually the in-person voting is too limiting in my mind on the intimidation. I think we need to have the ballot, it's 100 feet from the ballot box, but the way I get to my ballot box, even though it's at a sheriff's substation, they could actually be sitting there waiting to intimidate me before I could ever get that car. And I think that kind of intimidation, we need to say something. You've got to be away from the ballot boxes and everything, not just in-person voting.
I think that's a really good point.
It's definitely a problem. There's also legitimate concerns about, we saw in Bridgeport, Connecticut, real honest to goodness ballot stuffing in ballot boxes. And, it underlines the importance of allowing observation, but it can't be intimidating. So I think Colorado has a pretty good approach to that right now, but I don't think prohibiting people from watching ballot boxes.
I agree. The other thing that I think is so unknown by the average voter is what happens to my ballot after I put it in that machine. And certainly there's all these counts that go on, but like in Wisconsin, throughout the whole day, people are constantly verifying that the number of ballots given out equal the number that's in the box. And then after you tally those numbers, there's all kinds of security checks and cross tabulations and calculations that go on. People have no idea what kind of security occurs with your ballot afterwards and how many times it's checked. And what are they called? Board of electors or something like that go in and
Canvas board, yeah.
Canvas, there's my word. Somehow when I talk to people around here about voting, they all say, oh, this mail-in ballot is just all so fake. It's also, they don't understand what happens to the ballot and the number of verifications afterwards.
We have a presentation for you to use.
Well, great. It's online? But
It's called Elections White Paper. Help me out, Karen.
Yes, if you will go to the LWVCO website.
okay.
I don't even think you have to sign in as a member.
I mean,
if you'll go there, and I can send you step by step, but go there, across the top, you will see some pull down menus, and one of those is elections.
Yeah,
and
looked at that.
Elections menu, then there is a tab that talks about election security and elections in Colorado, and that pull down menu then will allow you to be able to access. Jerry and I and a couple of other league members were engaged a few years back to actually write up a white paper that outlines how Colorado elections work. The pull down menu says elections, and then under that is another tab that says Colorado election system. And when you click on that, you will see a whole section that says Colorado's innovative and stellar election system. And you can then click on the full report of how Colorado's system works, all of the security measures that are in place. It talks about, how you register to vote, where you go, when you can register, how long the polls are, everything you want to know about.
Is it about after you put your ballot in that machine?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
that's in there. Okay, I'll go look at that.
I just posted that put that in the chat. So,
but that's where I find people are the most confused.
And it's not just what happens when you vote in person. It's what happens after you put your ballot in the drop box. Yeah. What are the steps taken after that?
And also the auditing that we do of the tabulation, risk limiting audits that Colorado has pioneered at a statewide level. So you bet.
I think that's just so important for voters to really grasp, to try and undo this vision of how bad.
Encouraging them to go. Almost all the clerks are very, very proud to do tours of their office and show, physically and answer questions and stuff. They really find that is the most effective way. So if you've got individuals, encourage them to go find a tour with their clerk, because it's when you see it that connects best.
I'm going in about 2 weeks, so maybe I'll see if I can get some of these deniers around here.
Where are you located, Jennifer?
I'm over in Highlands Ranch.
Yeah.
Douglas County. Yeah. Okay. If you want a good story about security, Grand County is a mountain county up and covers Winter Park, Fraser, Granby, Hot Sulphur Springs. The wildfire went through and just threatened a good portion of the county a couple of 2-3 years ago. The town of Grand Lake was threatened. On the way out of town, they were able to grab the ballots out of the drop box and take them with you to avoid the fire.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. And then they had to set up emergency procedures for people who had lost their homes and their addresses and everything else. So, there's a system that we're very proud of.
Yeah.
One of the things that's interesting, I was talking with my county clerk a while back, and I live in an extremely conservative county. The Democrats don't even run anybody for office anymore. We're so conservative. And the county clerk was saying that she'd been having some problems with an individual that, didn't make any difference how she tried to explain the system and what she shared. This individual was just sure that, that there was lots of hanky-panky going on with the election, and, she had no confidence in it. So the county clerk invited her to serve as a judge and help with the election, I think in 2022, if I recall correctly. And after she had a chance to actually be on site, be engaged and involved, it was like the aha moment.
Sure.
Oh,
Sure.
you know, you have individuals, either family members or friends, that just you're not having any luck helping them see that a lot of the misinformation out there is exactly that. Um, encourage them to sign up, because sometimes that's more effective than you spending a lot of time trying to engage somebody who's they already have their own set of facts.
Sure. I agree.
Mary? I had a couple of wording thoughts.
Oh, thanks.
You've got, I think there are two places that you talk about where did we say? Yeah, the verifying voter eligibility using best practices, kind of both in the security area and down up above in the voting area. So you might want to consolidate those two wherever.
Sure. Okay.
And then, so there's a section that I don't quite understand. It says eliminate ballot, notary, and witness signature requirements. I don't know of any notary things here, and we do have
I don't either.
for people that aren't able to sign. So it seems to me that we want to keep what we have now.
Yep.
And maybe just reword it so that it's like not making it hard to vote, but not eliminating at least one way of having some extra verifiability for people that, would otherwise just put an X or something.
I thought about that too, and I was tempted to take it out.
Uh-huh.
I left it in simply because, as you alluded to earlier, you never know what our legislature is going to do.
Actually, so the fact that it already says verify voter eligibility using best practices that promote ease and security of voting, I think that covers exactly what we want to say there.
Okay.
I think we would forget if you were to take out kind of the eliminate ballot notary piece.
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, I think that's good.
And even on my ballot, there's no description of witness signature requirements.
Is there an insert that talks about that?
Let me go. That's in the other.
Itself might not. While you look at that, there's a thing that says voter verifiability of their ballot, and the way that we usually phrase that is something like requiring voter verified paper ballots. Because the fact that it's paper is actually, it's amazing to me that there are still people that do internet voting and they're like, oh, we have paper, don't worry. Yeah, you voted over the internet, but we print out a piece of paper, so it's all secure. And it's like, I don't think you understand what we're trying to do there. So I would say something like requiring voter verified paper ballots.
Requiring voter verified, okay.
Yeah.
There is no requirements described for the witness. It talks about you self-affirming, do not sign or print your name, blah, blah, blah. Your official envelope may only contain your voter ballot. No, there's nothing about requirements for witness.
No,
Which is kind of stunning. It doesn't even talk about if you cannot, fill out your ballot yourself, what you should do.
Very interesting. The envelopes do tend to vary a little bit more by, well, so on my envelope, the Boulder County envelope, the back of the envelope has a big X and a line, and below that it says voter's signature required. If the voter is unable to sign, he or she must make a mark and have the mark witnessed by another person. And then below that is space for a date and a witness's legal name. So you're saying yours doesn't?
No, mine does. My ballot does have that. You are correct. I agree.
The envelope, ballot envelope, or what?
Yeah, I guess you call this your ballot envelope. Yeah.
Good.
So it does have that, but it,
no, this is the one that I sent
okay,
out.
yeah. In the general instructions you asked me to look at, it
Well,
doesn't.
I was thinking that you said it was not there on your envelope. I mean, the envelope is right where you're supposed
Yeah,
to
I'm
do
sorry.
it. Best place, kind of, right?
Would it make this process a little bit easier if I send the well, Beth already has the document. If I ask her to upload the latest version, have her send me the link to Google Docs, I could share that with this group.
Yeah.
That will to be able to, you want to hit, you want to present your edits as suggested edits. You don't want to go in and change it. When you go in the upper right hand corner, and I'll put instructions and where to look for that. But that way it will allow you to at the bottom of the page, if you just want to list a group of items that you think need to be included, or right. Body of the document, if you want to tweak the wording or add something here or there. But if you do it as a suggestion, then it tells us who is submitting that edit, and we all get to see it, and then we can talk about it later on and decide, do we agree that we want this to be included or not? And then that way y'all have an opportunity to be able to share. It's awfully hard to try to stuff to Jerry and never try to figure it out.
Karen, that's music to my ears. It's so helpful really to the people doing the document too, because then you have a very specific written word that they don't have to copy down and hope they got right.
Well, it gives you a chance. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but it's hard for me to edit on the lam. I need a little to really stop and think about it and make sure what I'm saying is what I mean. And so this might be a lot more effective than doing it the way we're trying to do it now. Is that helpful to you, Jerry?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Great.
And I think it's just a matter of honing things. I think Jerry's done a great job here. I'm really pleased.
Yeah, I think it looks great. It's better to have more and take away if you need to. What time do your polls close here?
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Okay.
And that was the other thing. They wanted to put that in the Constitution. I'm like, well, that's the sort of thing we don't want to have to amend the Constitution to say, well, actually, these days, whatever.
I'm sorry.
That's the Kent Theory initiatives.
And the drop boxes close at 7 as well.
Is that across the country? They all close at 7?
US. It's in Colorado, 7 p.m.
Huh.
We're all in the same time zone, so that's helpful.
But I'm wondering I'm wondering if that is time zones change. But I remember years ago when they talked about the fact that they didn't want states to report who had won because then if I live in California, why do I even bother to go to the polls? Because you already told me that Canada XYZ's won, so I'll save myself the time.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to change the Constitution if somebody, if there's an important reason to play with that.
All right, well, I'll follow up and get a link then and share that with the entire group. Before we leave, and I'll give you a chance if there's couple last things you want to talk about. I have been asked by Maud Neural, who is co-chair of Action and Advocacy. They are in need of some additional LAC members. Specifically, they need people who have because there's so much legislation that's being proposed during this section. They need people who are particularly passionate about legislation that focus on children, on DEI standalone pieces of legislation. I guess there are a number of those things that are being proposed this time around, and on justice in general, along with how the justice system impacts young people. So if any of you are interested, and if you're feeling better and are ready to start getting engaged, Jennifer, this might be your cup of tea. If you're interested, please let me know. And what I will do is I will do or if you know friends would like to share, their contact information with me, then I will send out an introductory email. They will train you so that it's not like we're just going to throw you in the deep end of the pool and say, figure it out. But they need some additional folks. They are just being slammed and trying to keep up with everything. It involves reading the bills, figuring out exactly what it is that they mean, giving some thought to how they line up with league positions, and if these are pieces of legislation that the league should support, should be opposed to, or didn't really care about. So give it some thought.
I find I've watched that process, and you guys seem to know so much about whatever topic you're crazy about. I find it all very intimidating. And I'm not a person who's intimidated easily, but that does, doing it before a legislator, that seems very, ooh.
Jennifer, you don't have to do anything in front of the legislature.
Don't they talk in front of them and
you don't have to do that. If you prefer to be somebody who simply has, who simply reads the bills, gets some things down on paper, has conversations within the LAC with your subgroup, that's fine. You don't have to testify before.
Okay. And why are you laughing, Neil?
You're amazing, Jennifer. And so I actually am remembering you from a year, a little more ago, and you dive into so many things. You would be great in front of the legislature, and you get to do exactly what you want. So if it's research, if it's thinking, if it's giving input from Wisconsin, all of those are great things. So whatever you're comfortable with, but you'd be great.
I'm trying to get comfortable. That's why I attend these things and listen and ask a bazillion questions. I'm trying to get comfortable. I maybe will get there. I hope I do. But
Jennifer, if you'd like to sit in one of the Legislative Action Committee meetings, there's one tomorrow morning.
And how do you get to it?
I'll send you the link.
Okay. I'll watch. I think I did like a year and a half ago when I was packing. I got in by hook or crook somehow.
And we all started at the same place.
Okay. Well, tell me send me the link again, and I'll start trying to watch.
Okay. I'll do it immediately.
Me also, Jerry. I have way too many things going on, but I do think about it from time to time.
I know. And besides, we're limited to 2 hours now. I can remember when we used to go for 4 hours at the beginning of a session.
You don't do it in person. You don't do it in person, do you?
No, not any. We've been doing it. And we have people from around the state, so you get that broader perspective.
Yeah.
Sometime, do you ever go in person and do it?
People have, yes.
I would love to go in person if somebody would go with me. I want to find somebody who'll go with me in person.
Sit down and sit down.
That might be a fun little activity for a new group of, us, is to go, because I'm new here. I don't know how to, I could get to the Capitol, but how
which store do I go in to go through security?
Yeah.
I just announced how dull my life is by saying
you're a political junkie.
Okay.
The rest of us
want to be engaged, and that's what the league needs, are people who have an interest and have some time that they would be willing to devote to this. And would you like to sit in on an LAC meeting first, or would you be comfortable if I made an introduction, email introduction for you with Maud?
Well, I know Maud well. We've been walking together. She's been grooming me to try and do this. And then when I hurt my back, she backed off of me for a while. But she probably doesn't know I'm well and completely recovered yet. Don't tell her. Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But Jerry, you were going to send me a link where I can watch it on.
You can, yeah,
Yeah.
join in.
And,
I'll let Andrea know that I have done that. So Andrea is our lobbyist.
okay. And who could I talk into helping to organize a little road trip to the Capitol to listen to one of these things?
Oh, how about Maud?
Would she go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we can, someday you and I can just go down together.
Okay. And Jerry. All right, I'm writing your name down. I might want to do that. Maybe that'll, help me overcome some of the intimidation I feel.
They just put their pants on the same way everybody else does.
I'm sure. No doubt about that. But they don't ask you questions when you're in the middle of testifying, do they?
They may.
Well,
If
see,
you're
there
really
you
good,
go.
they might.
And then you just say, I don't know the answer to that. I'll see if I can find out.
But as a league member, you've got to be pretty good. I mean, you
Well,
got to represent the league,
be prepared.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
you will find if you decide you're interested in doing this, there are people that will work with you. As I said earlier, they're not just going to say, "Oh, great, Jennifer's willing to engage with us," and throw a bunch of stuff at you and say, "Good luck."
Sure.
Yeah.
They'll actually
It's training involved.
I've read the Colorado statutes and I've read the Metro District statutes, and I'm more comfortable with voting stuff. And that I would feel comfortable with. Some of the other, oh my God, PFS and whatever those chemicals were. I couldn't even get through the whatever. But anyhow, you hear what I'm saying.
Right. All right, I'll send you the link.
I'm looking for it.
Okay, if you decide you're interested, let me know and I will.
Okay. Well, you can put me as a semi-interested. Don't commit me yet.
I'll tell you what. I will send an email to Action and Advocacy and say we talked about it today. You think you are interested? You guys need to get together and because you like to learn.
I've done stuff with Action and Advocacy, and I do vote on all those bills where you say support, oppose, strongly support. I do vote on those, so I read all of those. Is that what you're referring to? Is testifying?
That's part of it. Yep.
Okay. I mean, I'm reading those, and I'm
good start.
giving my opinion for what it's worth.
We got a live one. Keep her engaged.
Hey, and I'll off the hook.
Oh my God, this is what scares me. This is okay. This is okay.
Welcome to Colorado.
Yeah, right. I swore I wasn't going to get this intense in politics stuff again.
I know, but we
Take
can't help
it at
it.
your own pace.
Huh?
Take it at your own pace. Be ready to say no.
Okay, I will.
And you can say I'm willing to do this much, but I don't have I can't devote more than that. So it's every little bit helps. It's everybody doing what they're able to do.
You should be careful about the monster you might be creating. I warned you all.
The problem, Jennifer, is
so warned.
Yeah.
Most people just aren't interested. They don't even want to. So
yeah, no.
Anything else, Karen?
I don't have anything else unless the rest of you do. So I will get a Google link. I will send it to you, and then you guys can start editing this, and we'll talk about it at the next.
Jerry, did you want me to do anything on that electioneering portion of the document?
If you want to, we can take a look at it and see what people think.
Okay, you're going to get the Google Doc thing up.
Send you the link.
And then, okay. All right. Well, I'll go back to the statute and look. Okay.
Perfect.
Cool. Thank you. I'll give a lot of call.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Talk to you later.